As rapidly as we were able to extricate the wounded ones from the terrible debris, Jesus and our friends would take them in hand. When the last man was cared for, we returned to the lodge for breakfast. Much to our surprise, as we entered, we found the black bandit talking to Emal. It was the first time that any of us were conscious that Emal had been present. He saw our look of wonderment and said, "That will keep until later." After the meal was finished, we walked outside with the chief, and he told us that Emal and himself had come upon the man, seriously wounded and unable to move, as he was held down by his fallen horse. They had freed him and carried him to the temporary shelter, where he was made as comfortable as possible. Then they had called our hostess and turned him over to her care. After his wounds were dressed, he asked if she would ask her God to show him what to do to be like her. He also asked her to teach him how to pray. She asked him if he wished to be whole and well, and he replied, "Yes, wholly like you." She answered, "Now that you have asked for wholeness, your prayer is answered. You are completely whole now." The man lapsed into a deep slumber. At midnight, when our chief made his rounds, he found that the wounds had completely closed, and there was not a scar left. The man arose, dressed, and volunteered to assist in the rescue work. We also saw a great number that we thought were just slipping into the great shadow, restored completely. Some would cringe in terror at the approach of our friends, so much so that it became necessary to separate them from the others. After the rescue work was finished, the Black One, as we called him, went about among his wounded associates, doing all he could to alleviate their fears. Many seemed like animals caught in a trap, fearing that a terrible death by torture awaited them, as that was the sentence meted out to them through the law of that land, should a bandit be captured. So definitely had this belief become fixed in their minds that they never responded to the kindness bestowed upon them. They feared they were being nurtured back to health so that the torture would be of greater duration. All were finally healed of their wounds, although a few lingered for months, evidently thinking they were delaying the day of torture. The Black One later organized all of the wounded who would join him into a protective unit against further raids, and also induced many of the inhabitants to join this unit. From that time on, we were later informed that bandit groups never again attempted to raid that district. Later, 2 of our expeditions passed through that territory on their way to the Gobi. This man with his followers conducted them safely through his own district and the adjoining district, a distance of over 400 miles. And neither he nor his followers would accept any compensation for that service. We have been told that many times he has become a great power for good throughout the district, giving his entire life freely to the people without remuneration. Chapter 5. By noon on the second day, the wounded had all been cared for, and we made a last survey to make sure that there were no more wounded alive among the debris. On our way to the lodge for lunch and much-needed rest, one of the party voiced the thought which had been uppermost for hours in all our minds. Why this terrible holocaust, this destruction of life? We were tired to the very marrow of our bones and were completely floored by the shock. The brunt of the rescue work, especially in the early hours, had fallen to our lot, as the inhabitants had stood in such mortal terror of these bandits that it was very difficult to persuade them to lend assistance, even after we had freed many from the entangled horses. The villagers could see no reason why they should assist in saving the lives of those who were attempting to take their lives. Many of them have a deep aversion to touching any dead thing. Had it not been for our friends, the inhabitants would have left the scene immediately, never to have returned. As it was, we were weary and heart-sick, having undergone the most terrible experience of our whole lives. We arrived at the lodge, refreshed ourselves, and sat down at the table completely unnerved. Shortly the food began to appear. We were all alone, our chief having accompanied one or two of our friends, and Lin Chu, the black one, on a trip down the valley. After the meal, we retired to our rooms to rest, and none of the party awoke until late the next afternoon. While we were dressing, it was suggested that we go directly to our sanctuary, as we called the upper room of the temple. We left the lodge and started to walk to the temple as had been the custom on previous occasions. We had proceeded to the ladder that led to the entrance of the tunnel, when the one who was in advance stopped with one foot on the first rung and said, "What has come over us? Just a day or two ago we were in the seventh heaven of accomplishing things in 3 months that we had expected would take us years to finish. Our food appears on the table, and all of this without the least exertion on our part. Now suddenly we have slumped back into our old habits. I want to know why this sudden slump. I can see only one thing. Every one of us has taken upon himself the condition of the experience through which we have passed. This is what is now hampering us, and I for one am through with that thing. It is no part of me whatsoever. It is not mine only as I worship it and hold it to it and do not let it go. I step forth out of that condition into a higher and better condition and let go. I am entirely through with it." As we stood and stared at him, we realized he had gone. He had disappeared. We were nonplussed for the moment as we saw this man attain, yet none of us would let go of that which was holding us back, though knowing full well that we were still holding on to a condition that did not concern us in the least. Consequently, we were obliged to climb the ladder, go through the tunnel, then up through the different rooms to reach our objective. When we arrived, we found our associate already there. As we were talking of the accomplishment, Jesus, the other friends, and our chief appeared. They walked into the room through the door that opened onto the ledge. We sat down, and Jesus began by saying, "There are so many declaring that they are the sons of God, and that they have all that the Father has. They do have all the Father has, but this statement has not been made a fact until they have the courage to take the next step and see themselves as God, one with all that God is. Then they do accomplish. When the one in mortal, limited thought sees the Christ stand forth, that finer individuality does radiate light. That one that is projecting the Christ does see with a finer, clearer, and more extended vision. That one sees the higher body of himself vibrating at a higher rate than does his limited body that he also sees. He thinks that these are two bodies. He also thinks that that body is the Christ of another. These which appear two are only an appearance because he does not believe that he is the Christ. Let this one declare himself the Christ and actually accept it as a fact. That instant these two merge, and that one has brought forth the Christ. Then the Christ stands forth triumphant. Now let him go one step further and declare that the Christ of God stands forth, and that instant he is the Christ of God. Now the Son of God is one with God the Father, and he does go directly to the Father. That one must go one more step. This is the greatest and takes the greatest determination, as every fear of mortal thought and limitation must be erased. He must step forth, go forth direct to God the Source or the Father, and declare definitely and know positively without fear or precedence of superstition or man-made belief that he is God, that he is merged wholly or amalgamated with God, that he is this love, wisdom, understanding, that he is substance, that he is every attribute of God the Father, the source, the principle, He must accept this in all humility, such as one does show forth God. Through such a one, every one of the God attributes does flow out to the whole world. To that one nothing is impossible. It is only through such a one that God can express. When you amalgamate yourself with God, nothing is impossible to you. You not only have all the Father has, but you are all that the Father is. You are the Trinity. You are in Christ of God, God, all three in one. The Holy Spirit abides with you. The whole I Spirit, in creative action, abides with you. When you accept this, then you, as well as all others, will sing all hail the power of the Christ name. Not the name of Jesus, the personal, but the Christ. Let angels prostrate fall, bring forth the royal diadem, and crown Christ Lord of all. You do not crown the personal Jesus, you crown Christ. And Christ deserves the most magnificent of all royal diadems in the Christly crown. There are no diadems too great or divine for the crown of the triumphant Christ. You see that whosoever will may come forth and become the triumphant Christ. Whosoever will, let them come. When you say, God, see yourself as God. See God standing forth as you stand forth. God cannot be a bigot or a boaster or an egotist. Neither can the Christ, the God-man, the image and likeness of God, be any of these things. You can be just God, and so is God-man. I am in the Father, and the Father is in me, are true words. I am and my Father are one in all meekness and almighty greatness. God and all mankind united are almighty, the almightiness of God. That which was born in your so-called iniquitous thought is raised in glory, because the thought of iniquity is erased. That which has borne the image of the earthly must and does bear the divine image when you raise up that ideal image. I say to you that now, this instant, is the great opportunity for you to step forth out of this outer turmoil into the great peace and blessings of God, and clothe yourself with the light of God. In all meekness, place the crown of Christ upon your head, and unless you yourself do this, no other can place it there for you. Step up and be a part of the great white throne, the source. Become one with those that have made the great accomplishment in like manner. Be not only one with God, but be God, actually God. Then you can and do present the divine attributes to the whole world. How can God energy get into expression except through man? There is not another organism upon the whole earth that can vibrate at the same rate of frequency, and in consequence, it is so highly organized that it does perceive, then generate, and transform this supreme energy, which enables man to express God to the whole world. How can this be done except through the highly organized and perfected body, which are when you are in full control of that body? That control means full and complete mastership, messiahship, discipleship. You are only in control of and in perfect harmony with this body when you stand forth in perfect dominion and mastery in all of the attributes of the Holy Trinity. The I Am Man, the Christ of God. Then combining these three with the highest God, you are God. This is you, the man of today, all humanity, extending your vision and perceiving the truth about yourselves, that there is a higher and better life for you than the round of mundane experiences. This you perceive as you follow the right-used, righteous path, in harmony and true accord with the highest ideals you can present, or look forward to, or set forth in love, reverence, and worship.